Alright, so what you're hearing is the result of I'm just going to give you the answer. It's a bad crank sensor. And the part came off of Amazon. This is the 4th time this year this has happened. I know I documented 2 other occasions where I had customers purchase parts off Amazon and they were inferior parts off the bat, brand hammer new. So I'm going to give you the rundown of what this car had going on when I got it, because I had to replace the computer and the idle air control valve on it. The common thing was the idle air control valve would cause a computer burnout. When I first got the car, there was no communication with anything, and I had to basically start from scratch. Went through my diagnostics and concluded the computer's bad. When I pulled the computer out, it smelled burnt. I should have a photo of the circuit here, and being that the computer was burnt out, there's no communication. Long story short, replaced the computer with a used computer, replaced the idle air control valve. The car still did the same thing that you're hearing. It ran like it would not want to run. So I'm like, okay, well, car's in the junkyard for some reason, bad computer. Got another computer now. I'll admit this is a flood car computer that I got that's in there now. Program the key, and also if you have an MS906BT, you can program. This is a 2000 Nissan Maxima. You do have that ability to program the key. So long story short, so that's another good feature with this tool, even though it's not as expensive as a Snap-on or Solace or whatever other fancy tools are. You can program keys, but I digress. Program the key, same thing. And this is the computer that's in there now. So I went through more diagnosing because I said, you know what, it's working. It just sounded like the timing is jacked up. I went through more diagnosing here, and let me just add, because I was doing some investigating on these forums, and the forums basically tell you your car got cancer, and you know you can't do nothing about it. But they're all inconclusive. I do not have the same computer that came out of this car, meaning that it does not have the same part number. But I did look at the vehicle. It was an automatic. It had ABS. That was it. And I pretty much put the computer in there, was able to program it. So just in case you're wondering if you have to have the exact same part number, no. So I mean, if me looking for computers for this vehicle led me to a gosh, man, I would say to a dead end road, because you're not going to find a computer with the same exact part number. So word from me, who had to go through the experience, so you don't have to. Oh shit, something like a martyr. Okay, so I get zoomed in here. Hope I can get that glare off the screen there. Put this box under here. Alright, so I want to give you as much information as I can here. I just isolated these 3 PIDs, and they're right at the top here, and I'm in the engine computer data. So we're going to look at the engine speed, crank position, and the POS, which let me figure out what that is. I don't know what that, no, just POS count. I think it's position count is probably what it may be a abbreviation for. But what's supposed to happen, the position count is supposed to be 180, so we would see 180 peaks for 360-degree rotation. It's supposed to pick that up, and the crank position is supposed to match the engine RPM, from what I understand. So if it's not matching the engine RPM and this crank position here, this count is below 180, there's some missing teeth. Let me show you what I did when I hooked up the oscilloscope also. Waveform here. This is the defective crank sensor that's in there, and you can see that there's missing gaps here, and it's supposed to be, I'd imagine, closed all the way up through here, and it's supposed to, I'm pretty sure it's going to have like a gap before that indicates we're at #1 position. Now this car does have 2 crank sensors. This is the rear crank sensor we're on. This is This is a Hall effect sensor, and it generates a square wave. It has 3 wires, ground signal, and 12-volt source. The other one is in front, about a crank pulley that generates an AC wave, a sine wave. But this here does have missing teeth, and I tested this, and I was like, well, what if I'm wrong? And I continued to get screenshots, and some of them had filled in those voids, some of them weren't. And look at this one right here. This is real bad. And look at that rising edge there, like how it rises up, and it doesn't have like a real sharp edge. So, you know, and just like this was a okay in comparison to all the other ones. Same here. And I got some close-ups on them. Is this the same one? I want to say, yeah. So here's a close-up. You see that? I'm pretty sure the wave is supposed to be a lot sharper. Now, I have seen some petty-looking waves that were okay, like the edges will be rounded at the top a little bit, but this doesn't look that good. So what I'm going to do, we're going to go ahead and replace this new one, and I'm just going to give you the straight up, I have already replaced it, and it works. And it wasn't me shooting apart at it. It was a simple fact that everything that I've done as far as looking at the misfire counter, looking at the waveform here, and I'm going to give credit when credit's due, the resistance value. So let's do that real quick, and I'm going to show you what I got. Here's our crank sensor here. Now again, I've pulled this out already, and it's no similar than what we got. The only thing different was this bracket here was under there. But I'm just gonna go ahead and screw this out. And we're between the bell housing and the block of the engine. See the transmission lines there. I'm just gonna simply pull it out here. I wasn't even hitting the record button the whole time. Damn it, man. Alright, let's start over. Let's start over with this. So we have 2 sensors. The X is the one from Amazon. Here's the one for Import Direct. Here's the part number, if anybody gives a shit. 19-0388. Who cares? Because everybody's going to get it online anyway. So we're going to do a resistance test on the Amazon part here with the X on it, and then we're going to do a resistance test on the Import Direct from O'Reilly's. They're supposed to be 400 ohms around that is a specification for a good crank sensor. There's a magnet there, so I was kind of repelling that. So we're going to test the signaling side. We're going to put the ground here in the center. The center's ground, and we're going to test the outsides, which is the Import Direct here. This is 454 k ohms, which is in specification. And we're going to go to the ground side, 446 k ohms, which is well in specification. Here's the Amazon, the inferior part. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to test the ground side on the left here. 427 k ohms, which is in specification. Then we're going to go to the 12-volt side, which is 1.4 mega ohms, which is out of specification. So this part here, directly from Amazon, had a bad circuit. The 12-volt side of this MOSFET here was jacked up. It had 1.4 mega ohms, so whatever was going in wasn't going to have an adequate voltage supply, and that's probably why we got our drop-offs the way we did. So the negative side of this field transistor worked fine, just the 12-volt source here that affected the output, and we actually saw that. So I'm a huge skeptic, and I doubted a new computer, and I gave it another opportunity. I put another one in there, but again, it sounded like the timing was jacked up, and I went checking. That's why we saw the waveform that I took snapshots of the signal side, which was intermittent. There was some there, and sometimes it wasn't there. like the timing was off. Even though the customer shot a new part at it, despite it being brand new, we can never overlook brand new stuff. Again, this is the 4th time it happened this year. You know, getting stuff off Amazon and them being inferior parts. It's bad enough that we get new stuff from the parts store and they jack up, but try getting them online and it not working out. Now you're going to shoot something else at it that is correlated with those symptoms. And it becomes paradoxical real quick and frustrating, but, you know, I got to diagnose the stuff, man. I can't begin to tell you. But yeah, again, when I went from a computer to getting it running. It was not running. Put a computer in it, got to do something, and from there on, it was just, all right, maybe the computer's bad, put another one in there, same episode. Here we are diagnosing it, and check the signals. I added supplemental fuel, no change. Added or took away spark, not any change. And then I checked the signal inputs and went to this crank sensor here, because it definitely sounded like something was up with timing, and it sounded good while rotating. And here we are. So this is definitely an inferior part from Amazon. Things happen. Let's take a look at both of them side by side. See if you can see any obvious differences. So if you look at the head here, this is the O'Reilly's Import Direct. Here's the Amazon. This magnetic pickup on O'Reilly's looks thick. It looks like it's able to pick up a good wave. Look at the one on Amazon here. It doesn't look like a good rectangular shape. It's not as broad and thick as the one from O'Reilly's, and I don't think they had any contribution there, but you can see how it looked like it was just thrown together. You know, the differences. Alright, let's get the new one in here and get it started up. Alright, let's start it up. I know for a fact it runs a little bit rough, but I'm going to put it this way. It is a step in the right direction to get into the nitty-gritty of exactly what's causing that issue to not work appropriately, like what's causing this slight misfire. I mean, it's way better than not running at all. The car came in totally disabled, went from a computer to diagnosing the crank sensor, so now I simply have to diagnose a simple misfire. That's the least of my worries. Trust me, that's the least of my worries. But I can rev the car up, I can back it in and pull it in. I ain't worried about nothing right now because this is pretty much downhill coasting. So other than that, check your parts. I mean, just make sure check them if they don't work. Don't ever overlook them, because we do get bad new parts. And I'm like all for just, I offer my customers warranties on everything in 1 year for everything I replace. And, if anything happened with the parts store, at least you can return them. I'm going to save my stories for another day, but I've had a Subaru that was incompatible with the coolant temp sensors. I didn't document that, but the car also had mildly blown head gasket issues. But that car would not accept the coolant temp sensors from the store, So things happen. I had a Honda Civic do the same thing. Some brands but we'll see what happened, man. If this car holds up, like I said, I'm going to continue down the road. But like I said, this is a traditional misfire, and I'm pretty sure one of the coils are bad. He do have a trunk full of ignition coils, probably from Amazon. But, what are the odds of a bad part from Amazon being defective? I'm pretty sure it's a high probability in comparison to what you would normally get from the parts store. We'll see what happens. But other than that, hit that link, subscribe to the channel, stay informed, have that reassurance of my work. See you on the next one.